Good morning, everyone. Welcome to episode 100 of the 476ers podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk about yesterday's game plus the playoffs.
Yo.
So stay tuned.
Yeah. Justice for the blind, just something that'll find in the rhyme that are coming from my mind.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to episode 100 of the 476ers podcast. It is a centennial episode. The centennial is here. 100, boom, explosions in the distance. People screaming, haranguing. It's like the Berlin Wall falling, 100 episodes in, of me sitting up here talking incessantly about Tobias Harris, the Dominican, about Ben and his frustrating ways, about Al Horford shushing us, about Joe being the greatest ever. It's been a long ride. I appreciate anyone who's ever listened to my podcast or anyone who's ever been willing to hear me talk for any extended amount of time, whether it be in podcast format or whether it be outside, if you know me or if you've ever spoken to me and, found anything I've ever said funny and trivial and stupid, or if I ever made you think a little bit longer. Thank you for giving me that opportunity. So that's it. That's my thank you to everyone who's ever listened to me. And yeah, let's go. Let's jump into the game. Not to be too sappy. I'm like a tree, just sap coming out of me. Anyway, I'm so sorry. I don't stop. Dad jokes for the win. So yeah, let's talk about yesterday's game. So yesterday's game, I and this is disrespectful. This is a sin. This is a sin. I watched the first half, but pretty much missed the first half because I had to deal. I was on call for work. And I had to deal with a work call thing. So as I was dealing with that, it literally took up the entire first half of the game. And so that it was playing on the TV, but I wasn't watching. I was doing work and trying to watch. And then I tried to watch the replay this morning, and that was unsuccessful. I watched some of it, but didn't get to watch the whole thing. So I can't comment too much, and it's fitting because obviously Tobias Harris is the best half of his entire career. He will never have a half this way. And I missed it. You know what I mean? But I did catch the second half, where he then proceeded to go 3 for 10. You see? I'm sorry. I don't know why I have to be this way. Toby played great. The story of the NBA, the story of the game yesterday. Listen, this Wizards team can't hang with us. You know what I mean? I said that. They deserve to be in the playoffs for sure, and they're playing well. They played great. In my opinion, they played really well yesterday. You know what I mean? I thought they played well. They can't hang with us. They can't. Our best three is better than their best three. You know what I mean? For them, it's just Russ and Bradley Beal. And the problem with Russ is as good as Russ can be, it really is, he really does, with the same hand that he loves you with, he stabs you with. You know what I mean? He is Edward Scissorhands, loving and beautiful and an artist, and can create these. But he can't shake your fucking hand. You lose a hand. You know what I mean? He'll cut your hair. But if he gives you a pat on the back, I see you. So that is the story of Russell Westbrook. So even if he's one of your two best players, it can be hard to mitigate, is my point. But, I thought they played well. They don't have the defenders to really keep up with us. We can pretty much take advantage of them. At times, it can be frustrating. We're not aggressive enough. We're so set on going into a half-court offense that we don't take advantage enough of them. And maybe to a certain degree, we just don't want to take things. We don't want to turn anything into a track meet because God knows our transition defense is so fucking horrid and abhorrent that we cannot really we don't want to do that. We don't want to turn things into a track meet. I mean, you saw on made baskets yesterday, they were out in transition. You know what I mean? There's the Ish Smith crossing over Toby, which nothing really Toby can do. I mean, honestly, there's nothing Toby can do. That's not even Toby's fault. I'm not saying that to say that was Toby's fault or something. It was just a good move. Bradley literally does the same move a couple plays later. I think he does that to Ben, maybe to Matisse. I can't remember who he does that to. Same type of crossover coming downhill. It's very difficult to stop anybody coming downhill on a crossover, especially someone like Ish or Bradley, who are both really good mid-range shooters. If you try to drop back on it, they're just going to pull up and shoot. If you try to step up on it, they're just going to blow by you. What are we going to do? We don't do a good enough job getting back in transition. And that was supposed to be the focus of the time before the playoffs, of the rest before the playoffs started. But at least as of yesterday, doesn't look like we resolved that issue yet. They don't have the personnel to really go into a zone defense and affect us the way, some of the better teams will affect us later down the line. They don't have what it takes. You know what I mean? I like this Wizards team. I do. I mean, obviously, if you've been listening to this long enough, you know that I've been talking about this Wizards team for months. I thought they were guaranteed to make the playoffs. Obviously, they kind of almost fucked that up, but in the end, it didn't really matter. They came out. Shout out to Lincoln Park. And that was it. You know what I mean? It was close at times. I never felt like it was in doubt. I'll be honest with you. They took the lead a couple times too, if I'm not mistaken. But I just wasn't worried about it. You don't get Joe in the first half, really. I mean, Joe, he's just dominant. He's just dominant. Just dominant. And Shaq. God help us. God help us all. Shaq. Any move you can't do is not a cute move or meant to be belittled as something because you can't do it. All right? Yeah, you don't have a fadeaway. We know. You don't have a Euro step. We got you. You got a drop step and shoulders that can drop step a fucking moon out of orbit, out of position. If we had a fucking if we had to redo what's the movie with Bruce Willis? Armageddon, right? We wouldn't send a team of drillers. We would send you, and we would have you post up the asteroid, drop step it, and it would then go off its axis, and we'd be good. We know you're not going to hit the asteroid with a fadeaway, with a Dirk type shot, with a jumper. Just because you can't do it don't mean it's not an effective shot. Joe from the mid-range is absolutely fucking dominant. And as much as Joe gets to the line, Joe can do whatever the fuck he wants to do. All those cute moves Joe was doing, he finished with 13 free throws. And you know what the difference is he's going to make 12 of them. You're going to make 6 of them. So, come on. Really, it's cute when you break free throws, I guess. I'm sorry. Go to your general commercials, all right? Go to the general commercials or any one of the wild commercials that you're on. You are on local news commercials. I don't understand it. Everyone else is doing like these, crazy. Chris Paul is in the State Farm, a nice set piece, and you just be showing up to whatever local dive. Where are we going? Some made up shit with a bad green screen and an old camera that records to VHS. All right, that's the commercials you're doing. But good for you though. But not to hate, because I wish I could do any of those commercials. Good for you. You get the bag. You get to the bag. No question about it. No, you get to the bag. But chill. So Joe just dominant. Joe dominant. Toby carried us in the first half, essentially enough for Danny and Seth and Joe to carry us the rest of the game. Seth essentially scores all his points in the second half. I think Danny does too, or at least the vast majority of his points in the second half. And we're able to close out the game pretty easily. I do think, listen, I don't think we're going to lose to the team. We're going to go 5, I think. I think 5 is the most reasonable thing. A gentleman sweep and call it a day. I don't see us having any issues here. You know what I mean? If we just run down the players real quick, again, Danny, I thought Danny played well. I thought he played good defense on Russ. Russ is a hard player to stop generally, especially in the mid-range if you don't have the athleticism to cause issues, and I thought Danny did a great job. You know what I mean? Kind of just sitting back on him, knowing his cells when he wants to pull that mid-range jump shot. And so, I mean, it's crazy. Sometimes Russ's mid-range, he at times his banker is like Tim Duncan. At times his banker is like the best banker. And then at times his banker is like the Enron bankers. It's like the 2008 collapse bankers, the bankers of 2008 that are just evil and off. And they brick off the backboard in such a way, high off the backboard, hard off the backboard, careening off the front of the rim. It's either drop step from Shaq to the asteroid, or we're sending Russ up there to shoot bankers at the asteroid, and it's just going to chip away at it until it splits into a million pieces that burn up on re-entry. But then we got to watch out for the basketballs, the bricks of the basketballs that are coming on re-entry, because God knows. It's just wild. So anyway, Danny, I thought played well. Again, scored the majority of his points in the second half. Toby carried us in the first half, man. Good for you. Way to go, Toby. I thought he played okay defense. Not a spectacular defensive game. I just thought he did enough. 28 points is impressive. Listen, again, and I'm going to keep bringing it up. Anytime you see if you see a 28-point half from Steph, and you'll look it up, and he did it on 13 shots or some crazy shit like that. It's just always going to be Toby's game to take a lot of shots. You know what I mean? He just needs to shoot a lot of shots. He doesn't draw a ton of free throws. 29 shots and only 5 free throws is kind of crazy when you really think about that. It's just a lot of jumpers, a lot of layups where he doesn't draw a ton of contact because guys are not necessarily having trouble getting into position to contest legally. You know what I mean? But he's finishing it over them. So he did a great job. 2 for 5 from the three. Didn't shoot a ton of 3-pointers. Obviously, we want to see more. We're going to need more 3-point shooting. You know what I mean? It just is what it is. 10 for 32 is not going to cut it later on in the playoffs. But for at least yesterday's game, Toby gave us exactly what we need. Joe going out. Toby came out. I mean, Toby put his imprint on the game early. You know what I mean? He was pissed off. And I had mentioned this to somebody. I think we're going to have some trouble in the playoffs. And somebody had mentioned, sometimes, I forgot who it was I was talking to, they could be worried about the mindset of the Sixers because Joe can be kind of jokey and all that. And I can completely understand that. I don't think we have that leader. Joe doesn't know how to be a leader quite yet. I think he's doing a good job this year. But I think Toby does have that in him to show up. And it's that workman attitude. You know what I mean? That's the thing I like about Toby, right? The workman attitude. I'm here for the smoke. You know what I mean? We're going to go. I'm here. Give me the lunchbox. We're going to work. You know what I mean? And it's not even a lunch. It's not like a Power Rangers lunchbox. It's the tin lunchbox that can never make it through TSA. You know what I mean? It's that tin-ass lunchbox. And it's like you're using this lunchbox to whatever you're doing, you're putting things in this lunch, but you're putting all your dreams and inhibitions in this lunchbox and closing it because you have to go to work and you're quitting on all your goals. And Toby shows up with that lunchbox and he always, he has the attitude and he looks like he has the attitude of someone who's angry about how last season ended, which was fucking pathetic against the Celtics. And he's here for work. You know what I mean? So he did a great job. Only 2 turnovers, 2 steals, 2 assists. I thought actually some of he had a couple passes that didn't get rewarded. I thought he made a couple good passes too. Joe in the first half in foul trouble. Some of those fouls were bullshit. You know what I mean? Some of the fouls, I guess it's fine. Listen, the thing is that this is something that Shaq, again, this is again to the point with Shaq and all this shit, another cute move. Well, it's going to be kind of hard to not do the cute moves if the refs are trying to legislate when you're dominating physically out of the game. And that happened to Shaq. The difference was Shaq didn't have a counter for that. You know what I mean? He was just going to foul out. Joe has counters for that. If they're calling offensive fouls on Joe when he's physically dominating the game, he has counters. So that's like, okay, fine. I can't use physicality. Watch this shit I'm going to do now, which is going to be all these fadeaway jumpers, mid-range jumpers that no one can stop. It doesn't even matter. You know what I mean? So I think in the first half, Joe was pressing a bit. I do think he pressed a little bit in the first half because same way Toby feels, I think Joe feels. Like we're not going out the same way we went out last year. I'm here for smoke. I'm the fucking MVP, and I'm going to show you. Finished with 30 points, the vast majority of which he scored in the second half. Only Joe could finish with 6 rebounds. Joe, I wish you grabbed more rebounds. That's just all I'm going to say. I don't want to be critical of you because I love you to death, but I just wish you grabbed more rebounds. You know what I mean? 30 minutes, 30 points. Just get me 9 rebounds in that 30 minute span. And in 36 minutes, get me 11 rebounds. That's all. Something like that. That's all I would like. If you could just do something like that, I'd be very happy. 3 assists. I thought he made some good passes. Obviously, 5 turnovers. Some of those turnovers, one bad turnover off his foot, which we'll talk about in a second, is related to Ben, which, I got to come in here and pour water on Ben again, and then it frustrates me. I want to celebrate him, but I can't because people don't know how to fucking act. They don't know how to keep things in perspective, but here we go. Seth, I thought Seth played well. In the first half, just didn't show up. In the second half, scored all his points. You know what I mean? Scored 15 points in the second half. Steph did exactly what we needed him to do. So he missed, like I said, he missed a few 3-pointers in that second half, gimmies, a couple that would have been Tobias assists. You could look at the two assists really should probably be 4 or 5. There's a couple Seth, a couple, maybe 1 or 2 Seth 3-pointers. I think a George Hill 3-pointer that misses in the first half. On off of a Toby pass, a good drive and dish by Toby. That just didn't pan out. But in the second half, he shows up. Toby doesn't have it going. They get a little bit more committed to guarding Toby, being a little bit stronger defensively on him, and we essentially make them pay with everybody else. You know what I mean? With exactly what it's going to be. Joe is going to dominate you. He's not going to be many halves. He's in foul trouble and can't play. He's going to kill you. So we'll save Ben for last. Dwight. I thought Dwight played okay. You know what I mean? Listen, Dwight, it's good for Dwight to come in. Dwight comes in and kind of gives that physicality that sometimes Joe can be. I don't want to say Joe can be lacking at times, but I think Joe sometimes can be a bit. Just at times, Joe can be a bit. Joe's physicality, and I had mentioned this on the podcast against the Heat. There's a difference between a team that is physical because they're physical, and a team that it can be physical and tries to turn it on at times. And I think that is our thing with Joe. That's why Joe doesn't grab as many rebounds. If Joe, I think, was a little bit more aggressive, had that more aggressive mindset to be physical, to grab rebounds, I think we would benefit a little bit more from that. But Dwight is physical because he's physical. You know what I mean? So I think it does help to have that change of pace. It's almost like having a change of pace running back, one who's built off speed and another one who's built off power, and you just fuck with defenses that way. Or even 2 change-up pitchers, a pitcher whose fastball is, the greatest fucking thing on the planet, and then the next pitcher whose change-up is fucking the greatest thing on the planet. So there's a little baseball for you. You know what I mean? Not that I know dick about baseball, you know what I mean? But Lucas plays baseball. The sun shout out to him. He's a monster at it. So I think Matisse played good defensively. Obviously, not a ton of scoring, but he did put an imprint on the game on defense. I thought he did a great job on Bradley Beal when he was on him. And just causing havoc out there like Matisse does. You know what I mean? I mean, really, it's not as glaring when Matisse doesn't score. I think we just don't have a ton of expectations for him to score. But he scores with 2 steals and 2 blocks. You know what I mean? And I couldn't tell you how many points that those things led to right there. How many turnovers and points, because a block doesn't necessarily represent a turnover, but I'm sure they led to some points. He finished with an assist as well. So, Matisse just causing havoc on defense. George Hill played well yesterday, I thought. Hit 1 3. He did a good job just getting us into the offense. I thought. I don't think nothing spectacular. He had a couple nice baskets following up his own. He had followed up his own miss, put back. In the first half, a couple other plays I thought he played well. Shake did not play well. Shake is, I don't, a minus 14. I mean, that's the lowest on the team. You know what I mean? He is a problem. And it's apparent watching it. You know what I mean? It's apparent watching it. Right now, there aren't a lot of backup point guards right now that we're about to face that are worse than Shake right now. You know what I mean? I don't know that we can live with Shake continuing to play. I just don't know. Same thing with Furkan yesterday. He just played the first half and was just uprooted immediately. He was abysmal. I mean, it's rare. You don't see a ton of teams go as deep as we went yesterday. Obviously, Seth got injured at the end of the first half, so Tyrese played at the end of the first half, but Seth came back. I think that was all of Tyrese's minutes, I'm pretty sure. So that's a little bit different. But Furkan, it's going to be a struggle with Furkan. I mean, you got to believe most times in the playoffs, you're not going to go 6 deep off your bench. You're not going to take 6. We don't have 6 deep on the bench. You know what I mean? I think in the playoffs, like I said, it's going to be a Dwight Matisse, George Hill show, and situations where Dwight maybe doesn't get. Dwight gets, a team goes small or whatever. They're forcing Dwight into a ton of pick and roll, and we got to get Dwight out the game. It'll be a Matisse, George Hill, and maybe Tyrese thing. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. But right now, Shake and Furkan are problematic at best. You know what I mean? They're problematic at best. Let's jump to Ben. I thought Ben played well. I do. I do think Ben played well. 15 assists, 15 rebounds. That can't be understated. I've talked about ad nauseum about Ben's assist numbers. You know what I mean? And I'm tired of talking about it, but I have to bring it up again. He had some passes yesterday that were Ben passes that were not Ben passes that were that point guard, oh, that was a beautiful pass. He had one pass ahead that threaded a needle up ahead for a fast break. He had a couple other good passes. I can't really think of right now all of them, but he had a couple really, really good assists. But then he also had a ton of, I'm driving in and jumping, and because I'm not going to finish this, I'm going to find somebody who's open and pass it to them. If I was any team playing against the Sixers, I would essentially say we're not going to build a wall on Ben. We're not going to build a wall on Ben. Put him at the free throw line, worst case scenario. We're not building a wall on Ben. I need to see Ben finish before I build the Giannis type wall. And instead of building a wall, when he jumps around to look for the pass, or fake the wall, and when he jumps to look for the pass, go steal that ball. It's going to be going to somebody in the corner. It's going to go to one of the shooters. You know what I mean? When you look at the 15 assists, it can't be understated that some of those assists are because Ben just is not going to finish. He's not going to go to the rim. On top of that, your starting point guard going 0 for 6 from the free throw line, yo, man, that's a fucking problem. And people are like, well, he played great defense on Bradley Beal. Did he? I mean, Bradley had a great game. You know what I mean? So did he play great defense on Bradley Beal? Bradley still finished with, well, what did he finish with? 31. 13 for 23 shooting. 6 turnovers, which some of that is because of Ben, 33 points. So he had 13 for 23, and the 1 for 6, I'm telling you right now, in the first quarter, he missed 2 wide open 3-pointers. One where Ben was chasing him, got caught on the screen, he was open, missed it. One, he was wide open in the corner, missed it. He missed a few open 3-pointers. Bradley was really fucking good yesterday. And this is not to say that this is Ben's fault that Bradley scored that many points or anything like that. I don't mean to do that, and I'm not trying to disparage Ben's defense, but it's just that when I'm seeing people talk about this game and I'm seeing people talk about Ben, is this like there just doesn't seem to be a fucking middle ground. You got people who are either going to completely shit on Ben and said he wasn't good, and then you have people who said, oh, people are going to talk about him only having 6 points. No, actually, I'm not going to talk about him only having 6 points. I'm going to talk about him going 0 for 6 from the free throw line. That's a problem. Your point guard can't shoot, can't make free throws. That's a problem. And the other problem here is when we need a reliable ball handler down the stretch, the one that I talked about Joe's turnover is that the one that goes off his foot. Listen, Joe is prudent, is going to turn the ball over that way. We just know he is, man. He's going to turn the ball over that way. The problem is because he's our best free throw shooter, we have to get the ball in somebody else's hand. We can't leave the ball in Ben's hands. Essentially, at the last 2 minutes of the game, you're playing 5-on-4 on offense almost the entire fucking time because teams are just going to foul the shit out of Ben. And in the playoffs right now, going 0 for 6, it's about to get worse for Ben. It's only going to get worse. It has to be said that those 15 assists, some of them are good. Some of them are because Ben does not want to go to the rim, draw contact, and go to the line because of this. That's a problem. We can be honest about that and say it's a problem. Against the Wizards, it's not a problem. 2 years ago against the Nets, it wasn't a problem. 3 years ago against the Heat, it wasn't a problem. You know when it became a problem? When we played the Raptors, when we played the Celtics 3 years ago. When we played them, that's when it became a problem. I mean, last year against I'm not even counting last year against the Celtics because that was we were the worst fucking team in the history of the league. It was just the worst. We might as well been the 17 and 65 Sixers. I mean, we were just abysmal. But this is a problem. You can be honest and say it's a problem, and it doesn't mean that we're shitting on Ben. It doesn't mean anything like that. His defense is good, yes, but there is a point where the defense it's minimized when your offense is there's so much missing in your offense. Yo, you are the number 1 pick of an NBA team. You were the number 1 pick of a team. And because you can't score for your life, because you don't want to shoot, and because your free throw shooting is abysmal, it's kind of limited on what you actually mean when you're on the floor. You can talk about all the little things. I talked about that. He thinks he's Denzel with all the little things. But in reality, he's just Jared Leto and all the little. No, he's not even Jared Leto, because Jared Leto, I thought, did a good, weird job in all the little things. And it's not even a good movie, but whatever. He's Mr. Robot in all the little things. Just not ready for that part. And Jared Leto is Toby. And Denzel is Joel. The only reason why the movie is anything digestible. And here he goes, Mr. Robot, doing too much, but not doing enough at the same time. It looks like he's doing. It reminds me of what Russ said about Patrick Beverly, right? When they asked Russ about Patrick Beverly, and Russ said, "Y'all think he's playing good defense, but really he's just out there doing shit, and it looks like it." And sometimes Ben is that. Ben looks like because he's so, so he could be so jittery, hands moving, and doing a whole lot of shit that is actually doing something, but then all of a sudden you look up and the guy he's supposed to be shutting down has 30. Well, did he play good? What are we saying is good defense? I mean, how are we really debating this? And again, I'm not saying that Ben is a very good defender, but Ben's defense is not about shutting down people. Ben's defense is really about when he is in space, when he's in passing lanes, he can shut down quadrants of the court where he's at because he is such a smart player. He can be so smart and so active at tipping passes, getting steals, getting blocks, doing all those things. He can be so good at that. And if it is true one-on-one defense and there's no screener, there's not going to be a screener, he does a really good job. But once the screen is set, which is the NBA is a ton of screen and roll. It's going to be problematic. It's not going to work out that way. His defense gets limited in that environment. What he brings to the defensive side of the court gets limited once they go into a screen and roll. Once they're in the screen and roll, his defense is now limited. So what are you bringing to us now? What do you offer? Well, you're not forcing it on offense. You're not pressing the issue on offense. You don't get out in the open court and run. As unstoppable as people say you are downhill, we don't see it enough. But we're not being honest as fans about that, man. Like, we could just be honest about it. Ben as your second best player or Toby as your second best player is a problem. That's just the facts. If you look at Milwaukee's big three, and we're going to talk about some of the other teams, but if you look at Milwaukee's big three, come on. What are we talking about here? Just be honest about it. Just be honest. Speaking of being Giannis, another bad free throw shooter. Let's move on. That's all I got to say. We're going to win the series. You know what I mean? I'm not worried about it. I just want to point out what I'm worried about when it comes to Ben. That's all. I just want to point that out. A great start to the playoffs. Let's be clear. Great start to the playoffs. New York, Atlanta was a hell of a game. That was entertaining as shit. I said I don't know what's going to happen this series. I didn't make predictions. I'm sorry. I don't think I made predictions. Did I? I can't remember if I made predictions. I think Atlanta is going to win. I just don't think the Knicks can score with them. You know what I mean? I think ultimately the Knicks can't score with Atlanta. They just got too many weapons. I don't think we can score with Atlanta. You know what I mean? I am a little bit worried if we have to play Atlanta. If they win, I'm not worried about the Knicks because if it's a defensive battle, we have the ones who can get the bucket. You know what I mean? If it's an offensive battle, that's going to be tough. You know what I mean? Other than we're going to have to try to get Trey off that court. But Trey, credit to him. I mean, yesterday was the day of the bad hairdos. Trey and Dylan just dominating their matchups with their fucked up hair, cursing everyone out, yelling at everybody because they got bad hair and they're tired of getting made fun of for it. And they're out there. Way to go, Trey. Trey shut the fucking crowd down. There's nothing like in the NBA that really, if you want to talk about the majestic quality of MSG, the majestic quality of MSG is really about when a player walks in there that doesn't play for the Knicks and so thoroughly dominates that matchup that he shushes the MSG crowd. There is nothing more silent on the planet. There's I think Harvard or one of these prestigious schools, they had a project that they have this experiment they did, and they have the world's most quietest room that they say you can only spend maybe 3 or 4 minutes in there before you have to leave because you'll go fucking crazy because you can literally hear your body's functions. You know, you can hear the blood flowing in your fucking body. It's so silent in that room. It's like a negative amount of decibels. And that's what makes MSG so spectacular, is that the silence it can attain with the amount of people that are in the building is legendary. And Trey legendarily yesterday shut them the fuck down. You know what I mean? And then gave the most thug-ass press conference I've ever heard. You know what I mean? Essentially talking shit to all the fans after the game. You know, so I can't wait to see what the fuck game 2 brings. We're going to see. I need to see RJ Barrett be a little bit more aggressive. I'll be honest with you. You know what I mean? They're getting a lot of Alec Burks, and that's problematic. As we saw that last year. It just can't. Come on. Stop. Milwaukee and Miami, game 1. Another great game. Another great game. Listen, I think I did say I think Milwaukee's going to win this series. I thought Miami would win game one, but I think Milwaukee's going to win the series. But ultimately, Milwaukee won. Me and Vic, shout out to him, talked about all season. When are the Bucks going to realize that Chris Middleton is their closer? He needs to be the guy with the ball in his hands at the end of the game. You know what I mean? It shouldn't have taken them losing to Miami last year with Chris Middleton carrying their offense at times for them to realize that. Giannis is going to go ahead and get those numbers. He's going to go ahead and get his 30 and 10 and be that dominant self. But the fact that Giannis can't make free throws, I mean, Giannis and Ben, two peas in the pod. You know what I mean? Giannis is just more dominant, but they're two peas in the pod. I can't imagine Giannis. I can't imagine taking 33 minutes at the free throw line is beneficial. The fact that they can fucking put an infomercial in between the point you catch the ball and the point you shoot the ball at the free throw line cannot be good for your mental. It just can't be. I just can't believe that. If you're Joe can take 36 seconds in between each free throw. He's going to drain them. It don't fucking matter. When you're a shooter, you're a shooter. For someone like Giannis, I can't imagine that taking longer to shoot the ball is better for you. He needs to pull them shits like Steph. Just as soon as the ref don't even catch the ball. As soon as the ref just push the ball to the rim, you're better off doing that. A catch and shoot opportunity at the free throw line instead of what you're doing, because it seems like you're thinking so much about your form or whatever you're thinking about to shoot that free throw. I can't imagine that's good for you. Now, listen, I'm not an expert, and he's working with experts who maybe seem to encourage him to do. I don't know, but I just know from a psychology standpoint, I've done a ton of reading, and I'm not a fucking psychologist either. I can't imagine that the longer you take to have time to think about this shot is good for you. I just can't imagine that. I can't imagine it. The question about Giannis in today's NBA is going to be how far can you get if your best player can't make free throws? That's going to be one of the biggest questions. It was one of the biggest questions for LeBron's career for a long time. You know what I mean? How far are you going to get when your best player can't shoot free throws? You know what I mean? I don't know. I do know Chris hit that big-ass game-winner shot. I mean, that was a big shot right there. He put his shit on the table next to Jimmy after all the reports came out of Jimmy cursing out all the coaching staff, apparently. No surprise there. You know who wasn't surprised? This fucking guy. Anyone who's followed Jimmy's career knows that he curses people out all the time is what he does, apparently. So, where's all the Jimmy love now? Yeah. Is he the MVP if he submarines his entire team because he's cursing out the coaching staff? We'll find out after this. Anyway, I think Milwaukee's going to win this series. I just don't think Miami has enough. I mean, you're getting a ton of fucking Andre Iguodala. I mean, you're getting a ton of Iggy minutes. You're getting a ton of Trevor Ariza minutes. You're just getting a lot of those minutes, man. You're just getting a lot of those minutes. It's too many of those minutes. And so, shout out, somebody said that on one of my videos. Shout out to him for watching me talk after the Miami game that I've said that Bam gets bodied too much. He said, well, it was only in the finals because he got injured. And maybe he watches more Miami Heat than I watch Miami Heat, so maybe he's right. I can't say that, but I will say against Milwaukee, looked like he got bodied. The other thing too is that I do want to say about Milwaukee. I'm saying he got bodied every time, but there were times where Giannis made him look a little boy. Now listen, Giannis makes everyone look like a little boy, but I just want to point that out. One thing that's different this year about Miami than was last year is physicality. And we talk about physicality, and it's the playoffs. There were a couple fouls where Jimmy went to the rim and Brook contested cleanly, not a no flagrant type situation. They were fouls, but they were clean fouls, and Jimmy hit that ground hard as a bitch. And that's what you need. Last year, those fouls were not happening when Jimmy got to the rim. This year, that's exactly what physicality is. Let's see who's going to do this shit now. You know what I mean? So credit to Jimmy. Credit to the Bucks. I do think the Bucks are going to beat Miami. We'll see what happens. You know what I mean? The fear. Every one of these series is far from over, and this series far from all of them. Milwaukee has to make us believers. You know what I mean? That's what it's going to come down to. They're going to have to make us a believer. So let's see what happens. Listen, Brooklyn's just going to walk over Boston. Boston's not going to. I don't think Boston's going to win the game. You know what I mean? They just don't have it. They just don't have the scoring. They're just not going to have the scoring. You know what I mean? James Harden had a bad shooting game. He still finished with 22, 8 and 8, whatever it was, and he had a bad shooting performance, but. Here goes Kevin Durant, an easy 32. Kyrie Irving with an easy 27. Tatum scored a ton of points in the first half, and in the second half kind of went missing a bit, just died. I think he scored his first basket in the fourth quarter. You know what I mean? And Kemba hit a couple threes. He looked okay, but it's just not enough. They just don't have enough. You know what I mean? They just don't. They just don't have enough. You got Tristan Thompson playing a lot of minutes. It's only so far you're going to get. If Tristan Thompson being in your starting five because he's one of the best options is a problem. Robert Williams played great, though. I got to give him credit. He's a little bit undersized, which caused his issues. But I think he had, 9 blocks? I mean, that's incredible for a playoff debut. I like Robert Williams. He's just undersized. You know what I mean? He's 6'9". Against someone like us, he's going to get dominated. Against a team like the Nets, it makes a little bit more sense. But if they go with DeAndre Jordan, DeAndre's going to body him. You know what I mean? He's just too young. I think DeAndre's just too strong right now. Utah, Memphis. I mean, I didn't watch this game. I watched the highlights. I watched the first half, and I watched the highlights. But Utah is not going to get very far without Donovan Mitchell. They're not the same defensive team they were last year. And because of that, they're ending up in situations where they're going to have to outscore teams to a certain extent. You know what I mean? They still play defense. Don't get me wrong, but they got to score more. And without Donovan, they're not going to be able to do it. Mike Conley scored a good amount of points yesterday, but it wasn't efficient. I think he was like 10 for 23 or so. I might be wrong. I can't remember these, but I just know it wasn't an efficient scoring night for Mike Conley, and he's really the best perimeter threat they have in terms of breaking down a defense. Like we talk about, right? Who's going to break down a defense? Joe Ingles ain't going to break down a defense. Bogdanovich ain't going to break down a defense. Jordan Clarkson will break down a defense, but Jordan Clarkson, your reliance on him has to be limited. You know what I mean? Because it's either he's flame throwing and good, he's carrying your offense, or he's shooting you out of the game. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, it's like a coin flip. Speaking of backup point guards, Derrick Rose played great. Good for him. Good for D Rose. He's better than any point guard we have. We probably should have traded for him. Anyway, going back. And Dylan Brooks, man, you know what? I don't like Dylan Brooks, and I hate his hair. Talks too much. Straight from Canada. Acts like he's straight out of Compton. But over the last 2 weeks, he's taken a little step. You know what I mean? He's been playing good all season. Don't get me wrong. He's been playing good all season. His defense has been good all season. He's been shooting well all season. He beat us. I think he dominated us, if I'm not mistaken, or he gave us problems. I can't remember how he finished that game. But in the playoffs now, I mean, he scored 30-something yesterday, 32, I think. He scored the most points. So he scored the high on the team. Nobody else on Memphis scored. Valanciunas had problems. Jaren Jackson had problems. Slow-Mo, who was one of their leading scorers early on in the season, had problems. Ja played okay, but he was also not very efficient. I mean, he scored a lot, but he was a little bit inefficient yesterday. And where's the scoring going to come from? Well, Dylan Brooks is showing that he's a legit scoring option now. You know what I mean? And that going forward, who knows? Listen, it's crazy because there was that trade last year. Was it last year, the Heat trade, or 2 years ago, the Heat trade, when they traded for Jay Crowder and them? It might have been last year. And they got a different Brooks. No, it wasn't him. There was a trade that was supposed to happen between the Kings maybe and the Grizzlies, and the Kings thought they were getting Dylan Brooks, but instead they were getting a different Brooks, so that it got canceled because they wanted Dylan Brooks. And at that time, I was like, you know, I'm not that I knew of Dylan Brooks, but I didn't watch a ton of Memphis, so I didn't know. But they obviously saw something in Dylan Brooks that I didn't see for sure, and Memphis saw something in Dylan Brooks that they did see. You know what I mean? And they were not going to trade. I forgot what the trade was for, what it was for, but credit to Dylan, man. He's playing great. If he's going to be playing this way, he's going to play himself into a max contract. That's crazy. You know what I mean? And that's not a bad big three. If Jaren Jackson continues to develop, and John Morant continues to develop, and Dylan Brooks continues to develop, that's a pretty nice big fucking three right there. You know what I mean? That's the next iteration of NBA superstars possibly. You know what I mean? And Ja, we didn't talk about Ja. You know how terrifying that has to be? You're on the other side of the court as Steph Curry, and you got to stare him down, and you're not fucking worried about it. You're going to go try to outshoot him. You're going to outplay him. He didn't completely outplay him, but that takes some fucking heart. That takes heart and takes balls. And, I mean, Steph is one of the most terrifying players in the NBA, which I don't know if I'm going to have time to talk about that, but still, just a point, man. I mean, that was crazy. Credit to Ja. I like Ja a lot, so, you know, I have no problem blowing him. Pause. Clippers, Dallas. Listen, I'm going to be real with you, man. I'm going to just keep it a buck. I do not see a ton in the Clippers. I don't believe in this team. There just is no umph to them. I'm not going to say no heart because that's kind of whatever. That's like a buzzword. You know, how do you even quantify that? But there's just no umph to them. You know what I mean? There's no umph. And you know what? Let me talk about this real quick because Simmons on his last podcast or on his podcast last week talked about Steph and was wondering, you know, if you read Simmons' book, you know how he reorganized his Hall of Fame pyramid, and in the top level of his pyramid is the top 15 guys. These are 15 guys that no matter which 15 of these guys you have, you're in it. You know what I mean? You're in it. If you have MJ, if I have MJ, you have a LeBron, I don't know what's going to happen this series. If I have Tim Duncan and you got Wilt, I don't know what's going to happen this series, right? And he was wondering, is Steph in that thing? And, he broke some stuff down. I agree. Listen, as critical as I can be about Simmons, you know how I feel about Simmons. One thing that I don't think he mentioned, that not that he didn't mention, I just don't think he thought of this, but I thought about this listening to it, was when you talk about those top 15 guys, the Kevin Durant's, which he has in there, which I would agree with, the LeBrons, the Michael Jordans, the Wilts, Bill Russells, all these guys, right? There's one thing that there's a common thread between them, and it's how terrified do teams get of you? You know what I mean? And Steph is up there because when you watch the especially the game against the Lakers, it was like a constant fire drill of guys just chasing Steph around, people terrified of Steph having the ball or not having the ball. Don't matter. Just Steph being on the court is just a different level of heightened terror for the other team. You know what I mean? And because of that, Steph has to get up there. And I think he did need this year to really propel him to that level. And that brings up a point about how we view superstars this year. When you look at the superstars in the NBA, which superstars, when you talk about who the best superstars in the league are teams terrified of? I think Steph is one of them. I think Joker is one of them. I think Joel is one of them, right? When I look at someone like Paul George has the ability to give you 50. But I don't feel like teams are, because there's the extra thing. The extra thing. You know what I mean? That thing that can't be quantified. I think teams are scared of Jimmy. I told this to Vic the other day. I think teams are more scared of a Jimmy 25, 7, and 6 than of a Paul George 50-point game. Because if Paul George scored 50, I don't think teams are really concerned. Yeah, you don't want him to score 50, but he don't have the thing. The thing that strikes fear into the opponent. I don't think he has the thing. He has all the ability, all the offensive skill and talent, but doesn't have the thing. Jimmy has the thing. As much as I don't want to like Jimmy has the fucking thing. You know what I mean? Does Giannis have the thing? I think that's the question he has to answer this year in the playoffs. I think that's why we're not sure about Giannis. That's why we don't know how all the numbers and the domination and all that. It's all incredible. Against the Nets 3 weeks ago, he showed that he had the thing. But let's see if he can do that in the playoffs now, right? I don't think Paul George has the thing. I think Kawhi's aged out of the thing. I don't think he has the thing anymore. I think teams are scared of Kawhi, but he doesn't have the fire to galvanize his guys. He needed Kyle Lowry. Lowry was a really underrated part. The underrated part about Kyle Lowry on that Raptors team was the thing that galvanizes the team around him. You know what I mean? That got guys ready to fight. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what Kawhi needs. That's exactly what they don't have. You know what I mean? They don't have that. I don't believe in this Clippers team. Can the Clippers beat Dallas? Sure. I would not be surprised if the Clippers come back and win this series. I don't know how far the Clippers are going to go. I would never bet on the Clippers to win a championship. I'd be more willing to bet on the Clippers losing in round 1 than the Clippers winning a championship. Put it that way. Denver, Portland, I'm a little bit shocked by the results of that game. I'll be real with you. I'm a little bit shocked by how that went. I mean, Dame is Dame. You know, he's going to score a ton, but I just, Joker played okay. Their defense, Denver's defense has been okay this year. You know what I mean? And for them to go in and give up that many points, I mean, they got blown off that court in game 1. Shout out to Carmelo. Carmelo said, fuck Denver, I played here, fuck George Karl, fuck him, fuck everyone, I'm finna smoke you, whatever. I mean, I don't know why he would say that. Denver did everything he wanted them to do. But I'm kind of shocked by that. I'm a little bit shocked. I would pick Denver to win this series, no question about it. Them missing Jamal Murray is a problem, and there is a chance that all of us have caught a bit of bias watching them over the last month since they lost Jamal Murray play so well still, that when you get into the playoffs, can you get far without the dribble penetration? Without the dribble penetration of a Jamal Murray, can you get far without that? Campazzo Facundo, whatever the fuck. Campazzo. Jeez, Campazzo is a good player. I like Campazzo. He's a good backup. He's like the Ray for Alston on the Magic in 2008. You know what I mean? Yeah, he can get you kind of far, but it's not enough. It's not Jamal fucking Murray who can go off for 50, who can stare Dame across the way and think he's the better point guard there. You know what I mean? There's a difference there. Michael Porter Jr. is going to be as good as anybody, but is he ready right now to carry that scoring load without a guy who can penetrate off the dribble, who can break down a defense? I don't know. I don't know. Portland is not a good defensive team, so it really shouldn't affect them here. I would still pick Denver to win this series, but I am worried about Denver. I mean, but not worried about. I don't think anyone thought Denver was going to win, a championship, especially once they lost Jamal Murray. If Jamal Murray was healthy, I might be willing to put money on Denver to win. You know what I mean? Or to go to the finals. I think I'm pretty sure I talked about that months ago. How incredible would it be if it was a Denver-Philadelphia finals? You get to see the MVP, and you get to see a rehashing of when Hakeem dominated David Robinson in the Western Conference Finals. You just guys that when you have two MVP candidates, especially when you have two MVP candidates who play the same position going against each other, that shit is sex, man. That's like that's as close as you get as to a basketball orgasm. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Either way, I don't know. I am shocked by that. I am surprised Portland hasn't showed anything to me over this season, over the last week. That they got themselves into the sixth spot. Good for them, but I don't know. We'll see what happens there. You know what I mean? I am interested to see where that's going to go. Phoenix, LA, man, that was a crazy game. I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I'm a little bit concerned about LeBron, and maybe it's injury, but what I'm seeing from LeBron from the first half of the play-in tournament against Golden State, in the second half he turned back into LeBron. The first half of that game and this game against Phoenix, this was the same LeBron. This reminded me of the LeBron who played Game 7 against the Celtics before he left Cleveland. This reminds me of Game 5 LeBron against the Spurs in the finals in 2014 when they got blown the fuck off the court and lost that championship, where it just seemed like LeBron was just – it's almost like you ever play basketball? You ever play basketball or you ever play a 5-on-5 and the other team is low-key stacked. Like they just got a lot of good players, and your best player kind of just checks out of the game. He's like, we're not going to win this fucking game, but, and he just checks out. He kind of doesn't try to take stupid shots. He's not really going to give a shit that much. That's what it feels like. It feels like he doesn't believe in this Lakers team, which is crazy considering that going into the season, we said they were the most talented team. They were the best team. They got Montrez. They got Dennis Schroeder. Those were supposed to be upgrades, and somehow it's gone left now. You know what I mean? And watching LeBron is reminding me that maybe he's injured. Maybe that's why he's kind of out of it. Maybe he really is injured. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to tell because against that Golden State in the first half, I was like, oh, he don't look right. In the second half, he looked like LeBron, like Lakers LeBron again. In yesterday's game, he just didn't look like he didn't look like he gave a shit. Maybe he's throwing it to give Chris Paul. Maybe he thought about it during halftime against the Warriors. He said, yo, you know what? Let me give my man Chris Paul a chance to get a championship. You know what I mean? Let me go. Let's beat the Warriors here. We'll play Phoenix in round 1. I'll throw that series. I'll go get some rest, come back next year and win a championship, and let's see if we can let Chris get one. Maybe that's what happened. I don't know. A lot of people, Frank Vogel, trying to manufacture this thing that Chris Paul trying to box out LeBron, that was a dirty play. It wasn't a dirty play. He was trying to box out LeBron. That wasn't a dirty play. He tried to box him out. It wasn't a great effort. He's also 150 pounds lighter than LeBron. He's also 12 inches shorter than LeBron. What are you going to do? All right, he did his best. And LeBron fell, and I kind of felt like, just like when he got poked in the eye against the Warriors, he, coming down to the stage, and the winner is all right. But watching that game yesterday, man, I don't see. I think the Lakers are going to win. I'm still going to stand by thinking that the Lakers are going to win. That was my original prediction. But watching yesterday's game, I am scared. If I was a Lakers fan, I'd be scared watching yesterday's game for sure. For sure, they couldn't stop. They couldn't get a stop on Devin. They couldn't get a stop. They couldn't get a stop on him. And if Chris Paul is healthy, if his shoulder is okay, I mean, it's going to be problematic for them. You know what I mean? DeAndre Ayton looked like Shaq yesterday, just dominating on the offensive boards. You have all these guys, all these big dudes, and he dominated all your big dudes. Anthony Davis, playoff P. This was the AD that we know of that never talked about. Yeah, and shout out to my homie Dominic, who's been talking about this forever. You'll talk anytime you mention the words Anthony Davis, You could just say, I saw Anthony Davis the other day at the grocery store, and he'll be like, yo, you know what? I think Anthony Davis is soft, if I'm being honest with you. I don't think, just go off on a rant about it, on a tangent, just randomly. I just saw Anthony. I saw a person named Anthony and a guy named Davis, right? I saw them, two separate people. Hey, Anthony. Hey, Davis. I was playing with my homie Anthony and Davis the other day. I think they soft, if I'm being honest with you. Combined, they soft. I'd be a little bit worried. You know what I mean? I don't think that game one is going to ultimately decide the series, obviously, but I'd be a little bit worried if I was a Lakers fan. I did not like what I saw. Not from the body language, though. Like LeBron's body language looked like somebody who was just like, nah, I'm not here for this year. You can have it. You can have it. Especially like the Drake thing, the breaking protocol thing. Like, that don't remind me of somebody who has the singular goal in mind to win a championship right now. You know what I mean? I don't want to hot buzz that or hot button that issue because whatever. A lot of players want freedom, and I'm sure there are other situations of players breaking protocol that we haven't heard about. And if you're surprised that the NBA said, no, yeah, he's fine, don't be. The NBA is a money-making business. LeBron is the biggest money maker. It's like LeBron and Steph, the two biggest money makers. Anything they can get to have LeBron play, he's going to play. I assure you that. But just the point that is just weird to me. You know what I mean? Like that you would break protocol when you know the protocol. I know that this is outside of the constraints of your real life. I completely understand that. You don't want to necessarily abide by this. And fuck it, I get it. But on the other side of it, you're LeBron James. This party thing could have been rescheduled for another time a month later, 2 months down the line. I'm sure it's not a big deal. Drake is a fanboy. He's gonna show up wherever the fuck you tell him to show up. He don't give a fuck, man. He's gonna pop up like an owl. Who? He's gonna be like, who? All over the place. OVO. October's very own. You could have had this party in October. And he would have showed the fuck up. So it just is weird to me. It's just weird. It's like, yo, what is your goal to win this championship? Because watching your body language coupled with hearing about that party thing, it's just weird, is all I'm saying. It's just weird to me. I don't want to make the connection necessarily, but it just is weird to me. So that's it. That's all I got. We'll see what's going to happen here. Tonight's games, we got Milwaukee, Miami first. There's only 2 games tonight. So it's Milwaukee, Miami, and after that is Denver, Portland. Game 2 of those series. I'm really interested to see that Milwaukee, Miami game. Really interested to see what's going to happen there. And again, Phillies, we're going to win. I think we're going to win. Our game 2 is on Wednesday. So you'll probably hear from me about that. Then I'm going to put out another podcast, probably a mental health joint this week. I know I've been talking about it for like 6 months, but anytime you're delivering a baby, you need time. Anyway, that's it, everyone. Wash your hands. You know the drill. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Stop Asian hate. Black Lives Matter. Arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor. Wear a mask. Oh, you don't have to wear a mask anymore, but you can still wear it if your face is busted and you want to cover it up, or you have bad breath. Get vaccinated, though. That way we can move on with our lives. I'm having fun at the gym, not having a mask on, even though it's a little bit scary and it made me a little bit nervous and I had some anxiety, but ultimately I am not wearing a mask at the gym and it feels great. It feels great. It feels great. But sometimes I want to put my face back in a mask because I feel busted. I'm not feeling it. But anyway, that's it, everyone. Stay safe. Take care. You know the drill.
Yo. Yo. Justice for the blind, just something that'll find in the rhymes that are coming from my mind. Used to come